Welcome once again to Otto's Garage. Hi, so I've had a look at the valves and we took them out of the head and basically we got them soda blasted, so it got all the crap off them. But we found something quite bizarre really. I'll just show you and see what you think. Okay, so that's the valve all nice and clean and very little wear on it, with the strange exception of this little thing here. So from what we can make out, that is some kind of corrosion. It looks like it's had pitting on it and pre-detonation on it, and basically it's chewed into it. But what was bizarre, I'm just going to have a look here, was that the other valves, 3 out of the 4, had exactly the same on it, and it looked like a machining thing at first, but something just didn't quite tie up and there was some irregularity to the circles, so they looked like they were countersunk circles at first. But the 4th of the valves, this little guy here, you can just see there, and that's just started. So we can only imagine that there's been a similar area on all 4 of those valves. Somewhere in the chamber, maybe where the way the flame pattern starts in the combustion process, I don't know. But in any event, that's been chewing into it. Obviously it's not right, that's supposed to be flat, or certainly not have a dimple on it. So I made the executive decision and we've purchased new exhaust valves, and obviously they are all as should be. If we just have a look at the inlet valves, they're all honky-donkey as well. So quite strange how that's occurring on the exhaust but not on the others. The soda blaster really does bring these up nicely. They were thick with all sorts of grime and everything before, and of course you can see if there's any wear. So that's all good. The other thing that I've managed to get hold of is engine mounts. So these are cool. We have got to do a little bit of work on the existing mounts, take out all the rubbers, but basically we're having the Powerflex ones going in their place. I'm missing one of those still, but in any event, they are on the way. So that's all good news. The other thing that I've picked up is a new set of head bolts. So basically we are going to have a nice tight head on it, as they say, and then we've got some valve stem seals as well, which have come through. And the last thing that I got, so it's all to do with the head, is a water temperature sensor, and we've got a couple of little dowels there for locating the head. So we're getting near the point of getting that head assembled and getting it stuck back up on top of that block. But time will tell how it actually goes. Watch this space. Fucked. So basically we're going to have to take the engine off the stand, and to that end I've come up with a cutting plan. Basically what I've done is I've made up a little lift, taken some old head bolts. We've basically got that bolted down onto that, and obviously she's on the crane. So what I need to do now is take the bolts off around the back, and then we can release the engine from the stand for the moment, because we've got to get round the back side of it to get access down here to put on all of the other bits that are in the way because of the stand. So that's the plan. Lift that up like that, and then we can have to just kind of set it down gently, probably on some packaging or something like that, just so we don't end up damaging the bottom of the sump and etc. Let's get her off. with the engine off the stand and down on the floor, obviously it's a lot easier to get to the flywheel end of it and get some of those fixings in there, you know, like the plugs and the seals and stuff. So let's just have a look and just see what we've done. So basically, there she is now. We fitted the water plate. These two plugs are the other end of the balancer shaft on the delete kit that we've got. We've got an oil way blank going in here, and then obviously we've got the rear crank oil seal as well on that. So that's all good. The holes that we've got left are where the bell housing fixes onto, basically that one down there, and there's one over there as well. I've got a couple of bolts that have got to come through here from underneath. We obviously haven't got the gasket in between the primary sump and the main block at the moment, and likewise there's a gasket that's got to go in between the oil pan and the primary sump there. So that's all that ready to rock. There is another item that I've got to get sorted out, and that is the plate that goes kind of behind the starter motor and the flywheel. Let me just show you that. So that's that basically. So that bolts up onto you know, obviously between the block and the bell housing, but I need to get that finished because obviously that's a bit of a state at the moment. You know, it's not super rusty, but there are bits of patches on it. It's still in one piece, so I think that is going to call for a little trip to the powder coater. And yep, there's a few more bits in there as well. Some of these ones are like, I think that one might be something to do with the balancer shaft or something like that, so we won't bother putting those ones back on it. But the ones that do need cleaning up, we'll have to get those cleaned up and powder coated. And then, my friends, we are on to this little beauty, obviously the gearbox. We said before that we've got that breakage on the end casing there, the mount, but we have got this one over here to replace it. So that does need a bit of work, and I'm still not sure what's going on inside, whether we've got a leak on the primary shaft down there. I think I'm going to replace that seal there anyway, just to make sure. But like I said before, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the gearbox itself at the moment. We're just going to get it back in the car. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to change that at a later date, but I will be putting a decent clutch in there anyway, just to take that extra amount of grunt that I'm hoping we've got. So they're the next couple of jobs that we've got to do. There's one other thing that I am going to show you, and it's to do with the cylinder head. And I sent this away to have it skimmed, which was great. And when it came back, Andy up at Powder Coating Shropshire, he's bought a new machine which basically does ice blasting. So that uses dry ice under pressure and it cleans the parts. So take a look at this video of him cleaning the cylinder head. It's bloody impressive. Okay, I've just put the sump and the oil pan on, so we'll just have a quick look at that one. So there she is. Basically, gaskets on, all bolted down and ready to go. There's a couple of bolts here which have countersunk heads on them. I'm not putting those in at the moment. I think there might be a bracket which goes onto that, so we're just going to leave that on for now. And then around this side I'm just one short, so I need to put one in there as well. This was an original bolt. I ran out of shiny ones. I think we'll get away with that. Anyway, that's it. So that is all on and done and dusted. The bottom end is complete-a-runo. The next thing we've got to do, there's a guard that goes on the front here. But that was, like I said before, that's for some powder coating to be sorted out on that. And I still got to source a new alternator and a new starter for it as well. So I'm going to flick that back over, cover up, and then that will do for the moment. So that's a new valve, and that's a new valve that's been lapped, and you can see that's what we're looking for. Taking that shiny edge off it and getting it lapped in to the seat. So you can see there where that's been lapped in that seat, and the adjacent one which hasn't been lapped in is quite shiny. So this is for number one. So that one's all sorted out, and the machine that we're using is this little puppy here. So that sticks on the end of the valve, air operated, and it replaces the old stick that we used to use. So there's a bit of compound on the valve there, a little bit of water on it. We'll drop it back down into the seat, and then our little tool goes on the top of that, and we give her a whiz. Now what I do have to do is just give that a bit of lift on there, otherwise it'll just sit in one place. So we're back on the valve spring compressor jig, and this time we are putting them back in again. So I've got new springs here. Everything else is the same. Obviously some of those valves have been replaced as well. But you can see you've got a inner and an outer spring, so they go over. Thank you, like that. And then the top hat goes in, and then we're going to come down, compress it, and you can see there then we can get in to put the collet, which will just go inside. So there are the collets in, and when we release it, bingo. That's all four of those done, so we'll spin the head over and we'll put the valves in, the springs in on the other side. So I've got those cams back in the carriers, and I've put the carriers back onto the cylinder head as well. And this is basically what we've got. So we've got that kind of a nice red crinkle finish on there, which is just the job. I didn't show you much about the actual fitting of the buckets, which are these little fellas down here, and the shim which goes on the top. But basically what you have to do is check the distance when the cam is off lobe. So you check it with a feeler gauge between the cam and the bucket, and then basically at that point you work out the correct distance on it, and you have to change the thickness of the little shims which sit on top of the bucket until they meet the factory spec, and then basically you're away. So we've done all that. That was a right pig of a job, but at least that is all in now, and they're mounted on. So the next thing that I've got to do really is, this is just sitting on here, the head is at the moment. I'm going to take that off, get the correct head gasket in, and then when the correct head gasket's in there, then we can get it torqued down and get it in the right place. The only other thing I've got to check first is that the cams are approximately in the right position before we go dropping the head on there, just so we haven't got any clashing between the valves. The pistons are all halfway down anyway, so we're not going to be touching those at the moment, but we do need to get the cams lined up with the alignment marks, and then basically we can sort out getting the cam belt on it, and yeah, getting all that set up. So we are getting near to it, which is good news. Something else for you to have a look at, little delivery. So we've basically got ourselves a decent head gasket, and this is I think it's a 1.7 mil, which is good, but that's a proper job, that is. The head gasket that came with the kit I've just used temporarily for mounting the head on there, but just to give you an idea, the gasket set for the engine, which basically has pretty much all of the gaskets that you need in it, that was about 100 quid. This gasket that I've got here, the race gasket alone for the head gasket, that's just 100 quid as well. So that gives you an idea of the quality that's involved when you go to having a decent gasket, basically. But that's a must. That means as well that we should be able to run it at a slightly lower compression and therefore better boost. So that's good. Clutch cable there as well, going with the new clutch cable. I've got some various bolts for the flywheel and indeed the clutch. And then we've got the inlet manifold. That's the 8 valve. It's quite a thick gasket that goes on the inlet manifold. And then I've just got a few little O-rings and such like for the distributor and I think the end of the gearbox. That was gearbox input and stuff like that. So there's a few bits on there that need looking at. The big news though is what we've got going on at the back end of the engine. So basically we have now got a lightened steel flywheel, which is going in place of the old cast one, and we're just kind of, obviously great for weight, but also the other thing as well is that you've got to bear in mind, I did say this before, where the flywheel is located in proximity to where you're sitting in the left-hand drive, Delta, integrale, Prisma, whatever. Its flywheel is positioned pretty much right between your legs, and what I wasn't really keen on was anything going pear-shaped on that on the start line, and who knows where it's going to fly off to. These things can happen. So we've gone with a billet steel flywheel, and it's going to have a proper paddle clutch sitting on there as well. The clutch hasn't arrived yet because the Italians basically are taking all of August off on holiday, so I won't be getting that till early September. But that's not a problem. I think that'll be back in time for mating up the gearbox back to the engine during September and getting that dropped back in the car. So that's good news. This flywheel weighs, I think, 4.1 kilo. So she is quite light. It's a light bit of kit compared to the old cast one, which probably weighs 14 kilo or something like that. I don't know. In any event, that's good news, and it does mean that we can progress with getting the back end of the engine all sorted out, and hopefully getting the head on properly and manifolds as well, which is the next stage, I think, manifolds. Okay, so I've had a little delivery from Darkside Developments, and well, have a look and see what you think. So basically, this is the electronic controller unit for the water pump, and basically what it will do is it will monitor the temperature of the engine. You get rid of the thermostat in the car, and basically the BMW water pump that we're going to use is controlled by a little ECU which is in this package. There's a bit of wiring to do on it, but that's not a major problem, and in effect they supply you with all the little connectors and everything that basically you can connect the so you've got a fuse there and a little rotary switch, etc. Sorry, it's not a rotary switch, that's a water temperature sensor. Another plug. But this is the brains of the outfit in this little bag here. So basically this is the little ECU controller which in effect tells the water pump how fast to spin, depending on the information it's getting back from the temperature sensor. And the great thing with that is it means that the water coolant can keep passing around the engine even when the engine's turned off, which is a great idea. And you'll quite often find this on cars, modern cars. You like maybe pull up at a roundabout and you can hear a whirring noise going on under the dash. That's probably the electric water pump doing its work. So it's great because when the car's idling, the water can be shooting around quickly. When it's going faster, there's more air and coolant action going on. The pump goes a bit slower maybe at that point. But in any event, it's a cracking bit of kit, not horrendously expensive. I think it was only about 160 quid, something like that. The pump itself I paid about, I think it was about £50 for something. So in any event, we've got ourselves a fully intelligent water coolant system going on there. Obviously the one item that I haven't got yet is the actual radiator itself. But this is what we're going to put in, and I'm hoping that that's going to look after my engine after all that hard work I've put into it. So we've had a look at those camshafts going back in, the head on the engine, the rear end of the engine, you know, where the clutch is going to be and the flywheel is going to be. So they're the next stages to have a look at. I hope you've enjoyed this bit of an update, and I'm going to catch you on the next episode of Otto's Garage. Stay safe and catch you later.